Probably some of you have noticed that either your sleep quality or quantity has not been the same as it was before. Obviously, as we grow older, both men and women, we need less hours of sleep. But with menopause, there is a sudden shift in the sleep pattern for a number of reasons, which I'll explain and go through. So to understand the sleep issues, you need to be aware of which part of the brain that the estrogen is acting. As I told you in the earlier sessions, that the whole of the body has receptors for this hormone estrogen, and because of all these changes with a lack of estrogen, these receptors are now out of business, so they are not linked to the hormone that is circulating in your blood. So that means they will notice the difference between having the enough hormone and not having it, and then that will impact their function. So from coming to the brain and the sleep issues, so there are estrogen receptors in the hypothalamus, which is the main center which controls your circadian rhythm, or a 24-hour clock in the body. And because a lack of estrogen affects that estrogen receptors in that area, it does affect a lot of things, including your sleep as well as temperature regulation. And also estrogen levels, when they fall, they also change the melatonin, which is again another chemical that will be elevated in the evening to help us sleep, and the levels will go down in the morning. So there's like a clock, 24-hour clock, that's set in our brain with the sunlight exposure, that will set the motion, wheels in motion, and that doesn't function very well. And cortisol and stress, you must have heard about this hormone called stress hormone, the levels of which are high in the morning. Usually, physiologically, that's how we are made, and the levels should go down in the evening for us to be able to fall asleep. But because of a number of reasons, including chronic stress we all experience in the life, that does affect your sleep quality as well. So, as I was talking about, the hypothalamus, the part of the brain where the levels of estrogen being low, will affect your sleep pattern. This is a confusing picture, but if you're listening to me and not looking at the camera, I'll explain. This is the cross section of the brain, and these the circles and the triangles are the receptors that are present in the brain for the hormones estrogen and progesterone. And the thalamus and the hypothalamus are like deep seated parts in the brain, they're like quite deep inside. And there are another two main important parts you need to remember, or amygdala and hippocampus. One controls the emotions, amygdala, and hippocampus is the part where we form memories when we sleep. On the frontal cortex, which is the front part of the brain, is where the connection should happen between receiving the signals and then sending them to the deep part of the brain. And these things happen only when we are sleeping with the natural wavy pattern. So estrogen being the main hormone, having receptors throughout the central nervous system. There is a nucleus called SCN, or suprachiasmatic nucleus, that's set deep inside the hypothalamus, and that's like a switch, like a master switch, which turns on your natural 24-hour cycle. So again, lack of estrogen means the suprachiasmatic nucleus may not be functioning very well to induce the sleep. So the role of estrogen in the sleep. So if you remember the biology back in school, we have waves when we sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and or a slow wave sleep, and a non-rapid eye movement sleep. So estrogen has a role in inducing this deep sleep. Also, it regulates a chemical called serotonin, which is a precursor to melatonin that helps the sleep. So lack of estrogen will not only affect the amount of time we are sleeping, but also it won't be able to keep us asleep for long. So that means we keep waking up in the night. So another reason why women around perimenopause and menopause can't sleep is because of hot flashes. So where you wake up in the middle of the night feeling hot and sweaty, and you have to either throw the sheets and covers away, or you're drenched in sweat, so you have to have a shower or change the sheets. So these things happen because, as I explained before, this deep-rooted, deep-seated part of the brain called hypothalamus, which controls your core body temperature, becomes very sensitive to even small changes in the temperature in the room. And again, that's because of lack of estrogen. So normally we have like a thermoneutral zone where if, for example, if the temperature changes by a couple of degrees, like for example from maybe 20 to 22, your body naturally adapts itself, like slowly, reduces the core temperature, or heats it up if needed. But with the lack of estrogen, that becomes a bit overdrive. So it goes into overdrive mode where even 1 degree change in your core temperature or the room temperature, the body will think it's like a 4 degrees difference. So it will either try to overheat you or overcool you. So that's when we either feel too hot or too cold and come out in sweating episodes. So that's because of this reaction that happens in the body where your blood vessels are dilating, causing flushing, and then you sweat to cool your body temperature down. During the sleep, our if you measure our temperature, it should be less. The core body temperature falls. That's only when we can go into deep sleep. Again, the menopause, lack of estrogen, your core body temperature doesn't drop to the level where it should give you good night's sleep, and that's another reason as well. And melatonin and the circadian clock. So melatonin is the hormone that's produced by the pineal gland, and it is produced during the nighttime. It's regulated by light exposure. So once the morning sunlight hits our eyes, the eyes send signals to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And then that starts, the cycle where your melatonin starts building up in your blood. What changes during menopause? Melatonin levels do naturally fall with age, but the drop is much, much noticeable and severe to the point in some women around menopause. The changes combined with the signals not getting right to the part of the brain, the circadian rhythm becomes very less stable. So either you can't get to sleep or can't stay asleep, and frequent awakenings happen. Other reason why the sleep disturbances happen around menopause is because of the stress and the cortisol. We call it as allostatic load, which means during this phase of the life we have a lot of other challenges and the stresses going on in our lives. We are the sandwich generation between taking care of our parents as well as our teenage children. So we have like two groups of family members you are responsible for, or your children have left home, like an empty nest syndrome. And then we could be, higher position in our career where we're taking more managerial responsible jobs, and that has more demands. Identify shifts because of body shape changes and the way menopause is viewed in some cultures as with the life's changes, with the value given to that individual, that all causes changes in your levels of the stress hormone cortisol, which normally should be fluctuating with the circadian clock or the 24-hour clock. It should be high in the morning and then should be low in the evening, but that doesn't happen. So you have chronically elevated levels of cortisol, and that does affect your sleep because poor sleep means high cortisol, or vice versa. So the ways to improve sleep. So the main thing to understand is what is it that's causing the lack of sleep or keeping you awake at night or waking you up in the night. So it depends on whether it's a sleep onset problem or sleep maintenance problem, or is it because you're waking up with hot flashes at night that disturbed your sleep, and is that the reason? So how to improve sleep depends on what the underlying cause is. So maybe it's not the one single solution or the same reason for everybody. Obviously, if the hot flushes are the main reason, HRT is very effective in sorting that out, and that should improve the quality of sleep. And we'll talk about different types of HRT in another session. But otherwise, simple basic sleep hygiene techniques, which maybe You could get away not paying attention to them in the past, but with the age, with the hormone changes, it becomes very important to pay attention to the basics and see getting them right will help improve your sleep. So the main thing is to get your 24-hour clock right. That means waking up at the same time every day and going to bed at the same time every night. So that's the first basic rule. Keeping the room at least 1 to 2 degrees colder than what you normally would keep it during the night. So maybe it will be around 18 degrees rather than keeping it at 20. That could be because your body temperature needs to cool down in the night, so that keeping it cooler when you go to bed may help. Avoiding screens at least couple of hours before bed, avoiding to eat couple of hours before bed. Caffeine and alcohol, they affect as well. For some people, caffeine has marked distraction to the sleep because it's blocking the same receptors as adenosine, and that's not letting your adenosine build up in the system, and that causes lack of sleep. So maybe no coffee after 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Alcohol, your relationship with alcohol changes with the menopause again because of the receptors. Some people can't handle the alcohol like they did before, or they're waking up or their body's overheated and they can't fall asleep or they're staying asleep or stay asleep. Exercise, on the opposite, contrary, is known to help with the sleep, especially aerobic and resistance training. Yoga and stretching, like Pilates, can promote the parasympathetic drive. Again, that can induce the sleep. Mindfulness or meditation will help the sleep as well because it's reducing the levels of elevated cortisol, which we talked about before. Avoiding spicy food at night time. Magnesium rich foods are known to help. So, some people do take magnesium supplements, which is not a bad idea because with the current nutritional resources, with the supermarket food, our diet is not rich in magnesium anyway. So, taking supplements is not a bad idea. Very, very rarely. I mean, as a GP, it's very rare that I prescribe melatonin, but it is licensed to be prescribed only for men or women over the age of 55 and only for 3 to 6 months. So that's probably not a good option anyway. And again, melatonin may help to induce the sleep, but it may not keep you asleep if you're still waking up with hot flushes. So that probably wouldn't be my go to. And there are some phytoestrogens with mixed evidence. There's not a lot of research proven, but if that helps, by all means, you can continue them. And for some women who can't take HRT for whatever reason, taking gabapentin kind of medication can help. And obviously, having a fan on a hot day to cool your body temperature down may help as well. So the main thing is to treat the hot flashes if they are the cause for the poor sleep, and that may sort itself out. But there could be other reasons for the lack of sleep, as I said, with anxiety, depression, because the area of the brain that I talked about, called amygdala, where the emotions are formed, the lack of estrogen, it does lose its neural connections as well as plasticity. So it doesn't adapt to the stresses and in life like we did before. So, I mean, a lot of patients do come and say, I feel like I'm not the same person anymore. And they look at themselves from like an aerial view and think, okay, what have I become? Because you have like a short fuse now, which you didn't have before. That's probably because of the estrogen making these changes in this part of the brain, amygdala, which controls the emotions. But they don't last forever because the brain and the body is very clever. It makes new connections. It may take some time, for some a few years as well, but they do change. Unpersonalized, HRT, and it may there is a progesterone called estrogen, which is a natural bioidentical hormone. Again, it's known to cause sedating effect as a side effect, so that may help sleep for some women as well. But I would recommend HRT if hot flushes are one of the main symptoms for lack of sleep. So that's about it. So we'll see you next week again with a different topic. Thank you.